Hello everyone, welcome to ASCE UK India webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We are now live with the University of Dundee. Today we have Severo with us, who will let us know more about this special webinar session. Over to you, Severo.
Hello, thanks a lot. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I share my screen. Thanks for taking part to this session. So I'm very happy to be able to give you some information about what we do here in Dundee and what we can offer in terms of our programs and how we try to make you having a good time here. So just one sec. I guess you can see my screen now. Go to the start of the presentation and swap the view. So is this clear now? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I'm talking about what is civil engineering in Dundee and what kind of programs we can offer to you. We mainly focus on two different programs. One is a rather classic program in civil engineering with some structural engineering focus. We offer both a B-Eng of it and an M-Eng. And the other one is a new program that we have recently launched, which is called Structural Engineering with Architecture. We only offer an M-Eng for this, and I'm going to explain you what this means in terms of B-Eng and M-Eng. Before starting, I suppose that you were already informed. I'm suggesting you to download this software from the website that I'm showing you here. So this is a kind of a rather funny software. It's not a professional software. It's more like a game which allows you to design a bridge without really knowing any technical detail of designing bridge, but it's quite funny. So it's a way for you to practice and to understand what are the fundamentals, objectives when we do design, which are basically saving money, which is pretty much linked to saving the environment from pollution, if you think about that, because the more we spend money, the more we're using material, and the more material we're using, the more basically we are polluting the environment. So these two things are really connected, and as you know, sustainable construction is one of the main objectives at this stage of for civil engineering. So who we are, first of all, I want to introduce us. I mean, this is more or less the people in charge right now of the discipline and the program. So Professor Rod Jones is the lead for civil engineering. And then there is Mike McCarthy, which is the program lead for civil and structural engineering. I have structural in gray because we are going through a name change right now. So basically, from next year, the program will be called Civil and Structural Engineering. I'm the program lead for the other program in Structural Engineering with Architecture. I'm presenting both of them today. And then Jonathan Upton is the previous academic lead and also the advisor for studies this year for the first year intake. And these are basically the colleagues in civil engineering, so the people you will see teaching you, and so you will know us very well because we will meet basically on a everyday base. You can recognize an Indian name, so we have an Indian colleague, Anirban, and I mean we are quite international, generally young people. It's a mix of British, European, international people, and I think we are a very nice crew we are good friends between each other and very good friends of students. Just imagine that a bunch of us, one of these is me, but also More and Matteo and Alan and Masoud. We play on a weekly basis football together with our students. We go to pubs together. So it's a very kind of friendly environment, the one that we have here in Dundee. One other thing is that we have this course, which is something we launched this year. It's a course in structural engineering with architecture, which basically means that some of the teaching is taken by our colleagues in architecture. Cameron is the head of architecture. 20% of this teaching is architecture, as I say, which doesn't mean that you are taking 25% of the teaching from the architecture people. Is more like that 75% is really what we normally do in the other program, while the 25% is a mix of architecture stuff and mixed civil engineering and architecture stuff that we do deliver together with people from architecture. So it's an effort to try to basically take some bits of both subjects and make a multidisciplinary program, which is really designed for those who are willing to work at the interface between the two subjects, which is something that today is quite requested, to have some multidisciplinary skill and be able to work in order to connect different work made by different specialists. So it's something that is requested by the industry, and people is quite happy in the industry that we are doing that. So I think these slides is giving you an understanding of what does it mean having a BEng or an MEng, and what is an MC. Maybe quite similar in India. I'm not sure of that, honestly, but we have two different routes mainly when you start a program in engineering. One is that you basically take 4 years, and that's basically a BEng, a Bachelor of Engineering. And at the end of the BEng, you will be able to apply to become an incorporated engineer in terms of being a professional engineering. So you don't have the full qualification in order to apply to what we call a chartered position. So to be a chartered professional, which is quite important in the UK, because being a chartered engineer means that you can basically reach the top position in your company. When you get a chartered position, you probably get at least £10,000 more of salary per year, which is not negligible. So every people which is interested in having a good career, they want to be a chartered engineer. So if you get a BEng, you can still go for a further learning by taking an MSc. We offer some MScs in Dundee. You can even decide to take a BEng and then go somewhere else to get an MSc. It needs to be accredited. All these programs that we are offering are accredited. The new program is not accredited yet, just because it's new and we didn't have the time to get the accreditation, but this is basically something that we hope can happen in March 2022, because we are having visit, so it will be in place for next year. So the other route is that you just go for a MEng. So instead of having 4 years of learning, you go for 5 years of learning. So you continue that. It's like you're taking an MSc at the end of a BEng, if you think about that. But the advantage is that it's a unique kind of program, so it's less effort, only one dissertation instead of 2. It ends up 1 term before, because you need a 1 full year for an MSc, while when you end up with an MEng, you finish in May of the academic year. The MC basically means that you finish in September. So finishing a few months before means having an advantage compared to other people in terms of applying for jobs, because you apply a few months before, but also companies know that students that are taking an M-Eng are normally the one that are good students, because you need to keep up good marks to stay in M-Eng. Otherwise, you are moved to a B-Eng automatically. And also, they are the ones that are quite interested in studying. So, important thing to understand, at the end of the B-Eng, you have the full education that you need in order to apply for a chartered position. It's not something that you can do right after your qualification. You need to get a job, an initial job, so you can go through what we call the professional development, and then you can basically apply for the chartered position. You normally need 2-3 years experience, depending on the kind of experience, but you need to be able to prove to the engineering professional bodies that you have gained the right experience in order to apply for a chartered position. What are the engineering bodies? We have mainly 2 engineering bodies. The first one is the ASCE, the Institution of Civil Engineers. Is definitely the larger one. It includes all kinds of engineers, but there are also the Institution of Structural Engineers, which is the most prestigious for the ones that are interested in structural engineers. It's a smaller institution because you can imagine it's only for structural engineers, but it's very prestigious. It's very hard to get into this organization and to be chartered, and it's very active. I'm part of the Institution of Structural Engineers. There is the COP26 right now in Glasgow. You may have heard of it. It's the Conference on Climate Change, and we have organized a couple of conferences with speakers coming about and talking about sustainability. So as soon as I finish this talk, I will be heading to Glasgow to attend them. So it's quite nice to be part of this organization. So this is probably giving you a diagram of the course structures and how it works. So you can probably understand that in the case of the B-Eng, you have 4 levels, as I said. Then you can go through an MC if you want. You can transfer between the M-Eng and the B-Eng. As soon as you keep up a good level of performance, which is requested for the M-Eng, you can go through from the B-Eng to M-Eng. You can also go from the M-Eng of the B-Eng, and sometimes you are forced to go into the M-Eng, from the M-Eng to a B-Eng, just because you don't keep up the level of performance which is required. But I assume this won't be your case. The only thing the other thing you can do is that you can basically transfer between the 2 possible programs that you offer. Let's say you decide you want to do more architecture after enrolling in the civil and structural engineering program, then you can transfer at the end of the level 1 to the level 2 of the structural engineering architecture program. Vice versa, you can do the opposite kind of transfer. So it's quite open in terms of what you can do. We also have some electives, especially in the late years. And I'm going to give you now an overview of what you will study in different years. So this is the level 1, and this is really about fundamentals. Of course, there will be some mathematics, some mechanics, so which are really the fundamental subjects that you need to know in order to study civil engineering. So basically maths and physics, but then we will go already into civil engineering subjects. This is something that we do in Dundee. Some university, they tend to do a very kind of maths and physics based first year, which is basically common to any engineering program, which probably is very good in terms of the foundations that you get in terms of what you know of maths and physics, but it could be quite boring and demotivating, because you are picking a subject like civil engineering, and at the end of the first year you don't know nothing about civil engineering because you're studying maths and physics, which we do here. but we also do other stuff. So for example, this module in communication in professional practice is something I lead, and we do some technical drawing using computer assisted design software. We do calculation of embodied carbon, so we talk about environments. We go for site visits, and we host talks by professionals which are keen to tell us about the industry, the construction industry in which they work. So this is a quite kind of eye-opening module, but that's not the only one. In the second semester, you take up a civil engineering project in which you can see you build a BASA model, and you basically test some of the structural properties of these models. You do take up proper structural behavior module, which is the first module in which you do some structural calculations, and you also learn about engineering materials. So all these things are in common between the two programs, but there is a difference between the civil and structural engineering program and the one in which there is a bit of architecture, because our civil engineering students, they take up a multidisciplinary engineering project with the students, with the other engineering students. So you work on a multidisciplinary problem like a wind turbine and other kind of issue that involves mechanical engineering and civil engineering, while the students in the structural engineering with architecture program, they take up a module together with architecture students, which is basically a studio module. You work a lot together into a studio about how to design space, form, and structures in buildings. So you can see the first difference between the two programs. The second year, so the second year is really about starting learning about core subjects. Still, we keep a bit of mathematics. So that's then the approach. You can see the mathematics is staying in second year. You will see also in third year. So we prefer to have like this continuous learning of maths and physics during the course of the program, rather than having a very heavy, dry first year in which you do a lot of maths and physics, but you don't see any civil engineering. So that's our the way we decide to design our programs. So mathematics, fluid mechanics is also really a fundamental subject. It's applied to fluids, so which is something that we have to consider as civil engineers, because it's one of our focus is to design how to treat water in terms of various reasons, but you can understand that designing dams and designing a system for waters is basically a civil engineering job. So this is really the basic physics of fluid mechanics that is helpful to then apply fluid mechanics to all different civil engineering problems. Also, fundamental core subject is a geomechanic course. So it's basically the mechanics of soil. Then we do some civil engineering software in which you learn how to you start learning how to use specific subject for structural calculation and for drawing. It's also an advanced kind of learning of how to use Excel in an advanced way to solve engineering problems. So this is the kind of things we do in this course. There is a structures course, so the second course in which you learn how to calculate structure, and then the surveying course, which is quite nice. This picture is taken from that the field course, because most of the course is about going into the field. There is a camping, and the students camp together with us, with the lectures, and we basically survey the land all together. It's quite funny. We spend basically 1 week together. So it's quite interesting for you to learn something that also is a nice life experience to enjoy the nature of Scotland, the fresh air outside, and do something together. So of course there is again a difference between the two programs. So in civil engineering, you will take up a civil engineering project, which is really kind of civilly focused, and a solid mechanics module in common with the mechanical engineering and biomedical engineering students. So that's something that you do together with other students. While the students in structural engineering with architecture, they will basically take up a module of historic architecture, so history of architecture, and also another studio-based module in which you will learn about contemporary architecture and also the precedents. So basically learn what are the example of very nice and good architecture that we need to consider from the past in order to be a good designer. So next step is level 3. Level 3 is really when we take this theory and we bring it to practice, because basically it could be that up to the second year you start learning the basics, you start learning the core fundamentals of the subjects, but you don't have the chance to really apply these to real problems. So in third year, I mean, of course, there is some mathematics. I already told you that. We continue trying to give you some more understanding of what is math and, I mean, so some more insights of advanced maths. But then you go and apply the subjects to real engineering problems. So all these courses that you see here, structures, civil engineering materials, it's really about real design problems. So structural analysis is one in which you learn how to do linear elastic calculation of structures, but then you apply these analysis to design of steel and concrete structure in the second semester, and also to this module of digital and structural analysis and design, which is something I lead, which is about how to design structure using digital methods, how to make these design to be parametric, which means basically that you change some parameters and you change the design automatically, which is a kind of new way of thinking of the design of buildings, of new buildings. And also the soil mechanics course is starting to be about applying the geomechanics understanding to real civil engineering problem of soil structure interaction. The difference between the two programs, you can see now that in the civil and structural engineering program, there's starting to be some modules about fluid mechanics. Environmental fluid mechanics is really how to protect the environment from floods and issue with water, while the architecture-based course is moving through things about designing and planning, urban planning in this case, of cities, infrastructures, and society. So that's the two kind of routes that you see, depending if you want to be more, I mean, I think what you get more in civil engineering with structural engineering is a better understanding of fluids and structures interaction, while in the other program, while there is all the structure understanding, then this structure understanding is really focused on building, and then there is a lot more about design and design choice. So in level 4, imagine that some of you will finish your course in level 4, so we need to make you ready for the industry. So these applications that we were doing in level 3, they become more advanced. First of all, you have an individual research project. So basically you pick up a supervisor, one of us, can be me, can be one of the colleagues that you've seen in the initial picture. And you do a project in which you take responsibility. It's basically 1/3 of the load for this year. So it's a considerable effort that you need to do. And then the other subjects are really about detailed design and of different on different topics. So there is the structural design module, which I lead, and there is a geotechnical design module. It's about foundations and geotechnical different geotechnical kind of construction. There's the construction management module, which is about the management of a construction site. So you can understand this is really about how to do this role in the industry. And then for the civil engineering module program, there are a number of electives that you can pick. They're not listed here, but it can be either more fluidy kind of things. This conceptual design studio is an option, which is something we do in collaboration with architecture. And there is also computational mechanics for those who like a lot maths and structural mechanics calculation. There is another option to do concrete durability. So depends on really what you like. You can pick the right elective, and so you have different choices. The students in structural engineering with architecture, we have compulsory to take the contemporary architecture practice and precedence studio, which again is a studio module. You can see the approach in architecture is quite different. You spend a lot of time together working on a project in a studio. It's a bit old-fashioned, but then we use also computers to develop the plans. So it's quite funny. There is a lot of creativity to develop in this kind of work, but it's a kind of very different approach from the one from engineering. If you think you don't like to spend your time working together in a team, throwing ideas and trying to develop different ideas, then probably you don't want to do the structural engineering with architectures course. But if you like a lot of calculations, then you want to do the structural engineering with civil engineering. Actually, the structural engineering part is in both of them, so I wouldn't really say that you will be less of a structural engineer if you take the architecture kind of fashioned program, but both of them will be good for that. Level 5, of course, level 5 is only for those who wants to do that. It's quite similar because we have two compulsory modules: sustainable construction and project enterprise and management. Then we have a number of electives. Electives includes finite element methods, which is basically the continuation of computational mechanics, bridge engineering, for those who are interested in designing bridges, some more advanced fluids or geotechnical module. So, and also some more advanced materials module. Imagine the three core subjects are, the four core subjects in civil engineering will be structures, geotechnics, fluids, and materials. So you basically, at the end of your study, you will have pick up one of these, probably by choosing your research project and your electives to be a specialist of that subject. The option for those getting deciding to study in the structural engineering with architecture program, then it is also to go into a design internship in industry, which is a good opportunity to basically work in a real environment. So in this case, the 40 credits of the multidisciplinary project, instead of being taken into class, they are basically taken on a work environment. In some case, you can get paid for that, depending on the agreement with the industry. But I mean, I wouldn't really assume that. I would really assume that you are investing on your time into building some relation with industry, learning from a real work environment, and then probably getting more opportunity to be offered a job from them. One thing that I can tell you is that getting a job won't be your problem at all after you take up a program in Dundee. We have 100% occupation of our students at the end of the 5-year programs within, I think, 6 months or something like that. I'm not sure of this data. but it's just, I mean, I know we got a request by a company beginning of this year for some good students to be offered a job at the end of the 5th year, the ongoing 5th year. So they wanted to book our students to get their job after they finish, but then we had to reply that they all have already a job. They're all set. The students that are currently taking the 5th year in Dundee, they have all been offered a job by a company. So there is no way anyone can offer a job to them. They've already committed. So you can understand that industry knows that we are good, that we are doing a good job, and our students will be exactly what they need, and they are looking for them. Not all universities are like that. So we are a very good bunch of academics, lecturers, professors, and researchers, and these are mainly the areas in which we work. We work in protecting infrastructure from extreme weather. So this is really related to the climate change. I mean, all our topics are related to the climate change that we are currently experiencing, because we want to fight against it, and that's really our mission. So developing green solutions which can protect the environment while increasing biodiversity is one of the missions of our geotech groups. The group in materials and structural design, which I belongs to, we do a lot of work into optimization of structural form. So basically reducing the material and the quantity of the material that is needed to use for structural designs, but also reutilizing waste material is one of our mission. And then also the people in fluids, they work a lot in provision of renewable energy and offshore aquaculture. So you can understand that we do a lot of research, and actually we in civil engineering this is a ranking for the university. The University of Dundee is ranked first in the UK and 5th in the world for climate action, according to the University Impact Ranking 2021. And these are other important rankings. I mean, the most important here is the one that is listed in the bottom. For some reason, it should be very big in these slides. I don't know why I didn't really highlight it enough. We are first in Scotland for research in civil engineering, which means that we are the best researcher among different universities for civil engineering in Scotland. And in the same, we are third in the UK in the same classification. I mean, the first two are probably Oxford and Imperial, Cambridge and Imperial, and then it's us. One thing you can see, this is our 2014 ranking. The reason is that this research excellence framework only occurs every 8 years. We are now into the process of getting a classification, getting ranked for the new ranking. So we don't know if we will be still first in Scotland, third in the UK, but that's the last ranking that we have available. And you can see that we generally have very good satisfaction from students in the National Student Survey. We are very good ranked in different university guides. So we are a recognized excellent group of civil engineering in the UK. I need to be aware of time, just a moment. I don't have a, okay, so I just wanted to check the time. So, well, I'm showing you some of the students' activity. So it's quite interesting that there is a blog. You can check it. So these are a couple of students that are currently, I think they just finished. They were in the 5th year last year. They're now working. And basically they were very active on the blog. They were also very active into some different kind of industry-related activity during the year. And I mean, I'm reporting some of the comments, and you can look at these. If you go into the blog, you can see they used to write some articles and getting read by other students, by us. So it's a kind of a very nice activity that can be done by students. Other kind of activities that you can do, there is a civil engineering society, which is quite active. And so the civil engineering society is basically a group of students organizing events around civil engineering. And these events are normally fun events. They could do pub quizzes, they could do some other kind of interesting things. And this is something that sometimes we get involved. So we recently got involved into a pub quiz. This is really kind of a UK approach to study, in which there is a lot of entertainment and also a lot of exchange between lecturer and students, which I think is very nice and very important. One other group is the ASCE students regional group. So our student Deva, which is originally Indian by family, but I think he grew up in Malaysia. So he's the president of the Tayside students group, so which involves all the university in this region where Dundee is. So there are a bunch of universities. He is the president. So the ICE organization of students sits in Dundee for the area. And the nice thing of this, there is a close relation between them and the ICE, which is funding their activity. So they can organize trips, they can organize different kind of activities, and they're funded by the ICE, which wants to promote the organization between students at this stage. Because these students would be basically the ones that would be making the organization flourish in the future, and that's why it's important for them to gain their interest. Of course, there are scholarships available. I'm not the right person really to explain you what this stuff consists of, because it's not really my job. But I mean, you can go into the University of Dundee website for scholarships. You can basically select a country, you can select a subject, and you can also the level of study, and you can basically look for scholarship that applies to you. So I suggest you to understand. You can also check the level of fees when you do that, but it's important for you to understand what would be the cost of your studies. But I think it's important to understand that Dundee, it's a nice city. It's not too big. It's really in this moment is very active, because there is a lot of stuff going around in terms of building new. There are new areas that are developed. The city center has been completely redeveloped. I don't have a picture of the V&A, but we recently had. We're very lucky because basically a top-ranked building designed by the Japanese architect was designed and built in Dundee. This is the V&A Museum. It's basically an iconic building, and it is in Dundee. And together with this building, all the riverside is being redeveloped. So I was not enough smart not to show something of the picture of the riverside, but you can Google online V&A Museum, Riverside Dundee, and you can see how much is going on in Dundee in terms of new redevelopment, new places, new shops are being opened with. So a lot of nice life is coming here together with new jobs. The picture that you see here is a picture of the campus, which is basically close to the city center. So imagine the city center is basically you cannot see the city center in the picture. It's what should be, is like the picture is taken from an helicopter above the city center. So it's pretty close. It's basically 5 to 10 minutes by walk, depending on where you walk from. So it's basically there, and it's quite compact. Everything is there. There is the institutional sports and exercise. There are the tennis and pitches here available. There are some other sports equipment that you probably cannot see from here, but they are on the river side here. And the building that you see here in yellow is basically the Fulton building, which is where there is the our offices, our classrooms. I thought you can get taught anywhere in the campus, and our labs. Actually, this is the structural engineering lab, so it should be included in this box. But you can understand that from here to it's really embedded in the campus. This is the main teaching buildings. Many teaching classrooms are here. The institutional sports and exercise are here. There are some accommodations here, A lot of students, they live into private accommodation, but you can imagine that it's very nice to live into campus, because you basically can just walk from your room to the classroom. There are supermarkets and all the services very pretty close, so it's not really an issue. Civil engineering laboratories, so that's a nice picture of what we have outside, and I'm showing you some pictures of the interior of our Fulton building. So this is the Discovery Lab, where there are some kind of specialist computer and some tools for robotics that we do also in civil engineering, some automation robotics. That's me with students in the structural engineering lab. We are doing a lab kind of class on a small prototype of a truss, but I mean, that's first year. Yesterday, I was just involved into a larger lab test together with students of the fourth year, so where we're basically crushing concrete beams, concrete pre-stressed concrete beams. This is the fluid lab, where there is a student doing an experiment. This is the geotechnical engineering teaching laboratory. I mean, there is no space here to show all our labs, but I mean, I'm just giving you some picture of what we have. This is a smart material laboratory, where you can basically use X-ray and other imaging technology to analyze materials. This is the centrifuge, which is a quite unique equipment that we have in Dundee, which consists basically of spinning samples around, trying to reproduce the gravity force and do tests on structures and geotechnics kind of structures. Some of our collaborative teaching space, the engineering design studio, and this is the common room where we basically can do some I mean, we can have lunch here. I normally have lunch in this place, but students, they spend time here. So it's a nice place where we can both interact between each other. And this is a picture of Dundee, which is on the River Tay. So there are a couple of bridges, which I'm not showing here, but it's a quite nice place, honestly. This is my email for questions. What I had in mind is basically, if you were able to download the software, is to run a little game here now. But I know it's difficult to interact between each other, and I also I'm aware that there are only 15 minutes left, so I guess there will be some questions. So what I suggest is that if you downloaded the software, I'll pick you these. I'll put these slides through. So it's basically a slide which is showing you some data. If you follow the wizard of the software to basically start the software, and then you can play with the software to create a bridge and then test the bridge. I don't know if there will be the time, but I can show you that. What I prefer to do is to see if there is any question right now, and I can pick up the question before going into that. Deepika, can I ask you if there is any question?
Yes, we have many questions.
Okay, so let's go with them.
So do you want me to start with the Q&A session now?
Yes, I think it's the best idea.
Okay, so thank you so much for the lovely presentation. We are now moving towards the Q&A session. The first question, the student is asking, what career opportunities are there for graduate architects?
So I wouldn't really call them graduate architects because they will have a degree in civil in engineering. So it would be a degree in structural engineering with architecture. And so the opportunities are to work in engineering firms, especially regarding the design of the new buildings, as an engineer and as a designer. But you know that a lot of this work is about interacting with architects, and the design to some extent is also taken up by the engineers, because the main thing that we need to realize is that the shape of the structure is informing the architectural shape, and the architectural shape is informing the shape of the structure. So sometimes what happens, especially in old-fashioned work environments, is that the architect will come with something that needs to be solved by a structural engineering, and structural engineering is coming with a solution which is completely changing the architectural idea behind that. So that's really a role which is trying to avoid this to happen, because it's the only way also that we can design buildings which are not too using too much material, because sometimes to try to follow an architectural idea without having the structural understanding of that, we tend to overuse the material and over-dimension the structure, while these kind of people that we are trying to educate will be able to join the two worlds together and to do a better job in this sense. A lot of firms, they are basically asking for these kind of students that have this kind of understanding of structures and architecture at the same time. So my guess will be this will be the main role that can have. Of course, then it will be these students will be generally engineering graduates, so they will have a general education around engineering. So I won't really limit them to this kind of role, because they can take up any civil engineering job possible. I hope this is explaining that.
Thank you. The next question, do you have an interior architecture and design course with placement?
Sorry, an architecture course which without you, so I think the person is not talking anymore of engineering. I don't know much about that, because the architecture will be sitting in the architecture group, so don't know exactly what's their offer. I don't think, for what I know, that they have a placement, but that's something that should be better understood by asking to them. I think that the two paths are quite different in terms, if you want to get an architecture degree, the access is quite different, because you need to prove you have quite kind of art-based background. I think the architecture course in the UK, compared to the ones especially in Asia, but also in the rest of Europe, are really kind of artistic and creativity-based kind of courses. So you need to be aware, if you do that, it won't be, at the end of the course, you won't have a really much technical skills. So that's why I think that engineering with architecture can give you a kind of mixed kind of education that will allow you to be also a good designer, not an architect, because you won't be an architect. You won't be able to to join the professional body of architects, which is called RIBA in the UK, but you can still be a designer with much more technical skills in that sense.
Thank you. The next question.
Yep.
Do you, just 1 second, yes. Do you accept students with 5 years of work experience?
Of course, yeah. If the question is if we accept mature students that have already been into work, yes, of course, these are generally very good students. So there is no, we don't judge age or anything like that. Of course, you need to have the qualification, school qualification to access, but doesn't matter if you, in the meantime, you took up some years of work. It's quite common in the UK for people to come back to work, to study after working. And actually, we have another program which I didn't mention because I don't think really applied to this kind of cohort that you are. But just to let you understand what's the approach here, we have a program which is specifically tailored for people which is working in Scotland. They need to be working in Scotland because they cannot work in another country just because it won't be possible to conciliate the two things, but they're working and studying at the same time. So partially of course, they need to have a job into the construction industry, but partially they can cover their credits by developing work at work rather than taking up modules with us. So they have a reduced amount of study, and some of their skills are basically assessed by assessing the work they do for their company. So it's something that it's really accepted as a learning path for people here to learn some of the stuff out work.
Thank you. The next question. Do you accept Duolingo score instead of IELTS?
It's about English. So what did you say? Sorry.
Yes. Do you accept Duolingo instead of IELTS examination, which is the English? Yeah.
I'm not able to reply accurately the question, but it's quite easy to check these online. If you go, basically, I can try to basically show you the website. If you go on Dundee, and then you basically, unfortunately, I have the. So you can look for a program here. Let's say structure. So when you go here, then you go into the entry requirements, and there should be somewhere the English. So this is IELTS, and then you say we also accept other English language qualification, and you can see here there are different kind of certificates. So what was the one named, sorry, by the students?
Yeah, it is a Duolingo.
I don't know that. I don't see that one. It doesn't seem to be here, but these are basically the different qualifications that we would accept. Honestly, it's always relevant to ask this kind of question to admissions. So if you go to the website and look for the English language requirement, you can always find contacts. If not here, you can go into the entry requirements. You will find a contact which will lead to the admission people, because there is a contact us here, okay. Recruitment and admissions, and they will be able to respond. These are more technical questions around, I can tell you what you will study and what you can do after in terms of jobs, but it's these kind of things are university based, and also there are exceptions, because then we can basically be asked to make exception for particular students because they look very good in terms of marks and prospects. So what I would suggest you, if you get issue, just write us, because if I speak to admission, I can always try to push the student. It is like that just because sometimes certificates and numbers, they don't say anything, everything about a student. So just if you really think this is the right thing to do for you to study here in Dundee, we can try to help you.
Thank you. Savi, the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have January intake? Can I defer September application to January?
Not for the UG. There is not general application for the UG. It's quite uncommon. For the masters we have, for the PG, but I guess that this session is mainly about the UG, so it doesn't really apply to this. But yeah, so that's generally what we do.
Thank you. The next question. What is the deadline for accommodation? Is accommodation secured for international students?
Again, this is not really my field because it's too much into organizational stuff. So
okay.
I think you can, it's very easy to find this stuff online. So if you go into accommodation, application for accommodation, how to apply. Yeah, it's already here. If you're, it seems that the application is just, it's very late. The deadline is 31st. So this is for the past year. So it's basically you need to do it by August. The thing is that apparently there is no, I mean, we have a lot of accommodation, so there will be space, but probably August will be a bit too late to find the space. So I would try to do as much as soon as possible, considering that they accept application till August.
Okay, thank you. The next question. What is an average salary in the UK post completing degree in structural engineering with architecture?
I mean, I cannot really tell you about that program because we just started, but I mean, the starting salary for our graduates is normally around 30,000 K, and that's the starting salary. And consider that having in the first few years, this salary can increase quite quickly. So let's say after 2 or 3 years, you will probably get 36, 35, something like that. And then if after 2 or 3 years you get the chartership, your salary increase suddenly of £10,000, which means that you get £45,000. So it's possible that if you do things very well, you're 30 years old or less, before being 30 years old, and your salary is more than £45,000. So that's something that I can predict in terms of good prospects of students. Of course, then when you, depending on the occupation and the kind of job that you can do, that for managers, the salaries can be very high. So you can get to salaries that are higher than £100,000 per year, but this is something that occurred to very successful people.
Thank you, Savi. The next question. Are there any summer courses available for electronic engineering to gain more practical knowledge in the field of EEE? If so, how is it done?
So I'm not in the field of electrical engineering. There is a good computing group. So there are a lot of, I mean, they offer a lot of, and I know that there was a summer school the past summer, but honestly, I cannot really tell you more than that because I don't know the details. I suggest you to look for computing into the website. One of the person which is taking care of the programs is Mike Crabb. So I suggest you to speak with them and try to understand from them.
Thank you so much, Saverio, for answering all the questions in the chat box so well. And I think I've covered all the questions from the chat box. We
Yes.
are now moving towards the end of this seminar. I would request you, if you have anything else you would like to put forward for the audience who are watching this live right now.
Honestly, I'm just sorry we didn't manage to do that game, but you can do it at home if you want. If you downloaded the software, that I'm providing you some, just take a snapshot of the screen, because these are the instructions for the initial wizard. So you can set the scene, and then you can basically get into these sorry, I just want to create a new one. So basically it's just create a new one. Then you can basically use these tools to build a bridge. And I mean, now I'm not able to do that, but let's do it. If I can do it quickly in 1 minute, what I want to show you is that I can create a bridge like this. So you can do that for fun. Actually, one important thing is that you have all these triangulated structures. So you need to have all triangles, otherwise it won't work. You can then change the kind of material. So if you select these, for example, I want to increase the size of the members this way. I want to use hollow tubes rather than steel. And then you can use the test function, load test, test the bridge, which is basically telling you if the bridge is resisting. You can change the shape. So what you really want to try to do is to reduce this number here that you see is the cost of the bridge as much as you can, which means that you're using less material, whereas less time that everyone can try and give a number, but the time is over, so there won't be time for that. You can do it at home, your own time if you wish. Thanks. So thanks a lot for the time taken to listen to my presentation, and I hope to see you next year in Dundee. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Saverio. This looks really interesting. And thank you so much for your kind words to all the audiences. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact our SIUK India offices. We'll be very happy to help you at any point of time. Thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable time today. Bye-bye. Take care.